The type of attention you get and who you get it from determines where we end up in life.
We are we got.
This has already been accepted at the University of Texas in Austin, electrical
In a
engineering.
community where the statistics aren't the best, the default isn't the best either.
The gentleman who's going to be on the field representing South San,
Defensive captain of the varsity football team.
Mr. Jesus Rendon.
His life to giving back to this community.
St. Joseph's Catholic Church Choir.
So I decided to start a nonprofit called Building a Purpose.
And if we can raise that default to be something of higher standards,
Help students find their purpose in life.
I think we can do something.
We are we need.
Podcast where we talk about life, purpose, and God. Our next guest here is Mr. Paco Felici, who currently is the Chief of Staff out at Port San Antonio and was the Deputy Communications Director for the former State of Texas Attorney General. He is a collector. He is an artist. He is a good friend to the Quintana neighborhood, and we're very lucky to have him. And more importantly, he is the founder and currently runs Detours and Details. Love to hear more about that here in a second. Paco, thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you very much, Jesus. A real pleasure.
So tell me where it all started. I know you first of all, your name's Paco and your last name is Felici.
Right.
And I think you've been all across the world before you even graduated high school.
Yeah. So I'm a bit of accident of fate, if you will, as far as my upbringing, and it was a very fortunate trajectory to where you do end up with a guy whose formal given name, by the way, is Paco. Fun fact, I am not a diminutive Francisco. My Italian mother so loved the name Paco. I believe she had read it in an Ernest Hemingway short story or something when she was 7 months pregnant with me, and that's what's on the birth certificate, driver's license, passport. But yes, my family is my mom, my dad, aunts, uncles, grandparents are all from the same general region of Italy, a city called Ancona, which is another port city south of Venice. My parents met very young. They left there. They both got their degrees in electronic engineering. And I was born overseas. I was born in Brazil. But
Where in Brazil?
I was born in Sao Paulo.
Sao Paulo. Okay.
And I have crossed the equator once in my life, going north, when I was just a few months old. And then we ended up, by virtue of my father's job, he was a contractor with Ericsson, so a very large Swedish telecommunications company. And as a result, we spent time in several other places growing up, including Mexico. We were in North Africa for a while. We would do stints back in Europe here and there, Canada for a while. And then at the ripe old age of 14, we thought that Dallas, and specifically Plano, Texas, was the place to be. My parents are still there. I ended up going to the University of Texas at Austin.
All right.
Yeah. And then stuck around Austin, took one of my first big life detours that took me into public policy for a number of years, and then eventually found my way down here in San Antonio. Had a great opportunity with the port over the last 15 years. You and I got to meet, become friends along the way, and then you invited me to do this podcast. So I think that wraps up the last few decades.
Yeah. So you're fluent in multiple languages, and you probably speak better Spanish than I do.
Yeah. Again, well, I don't know. We haven't had the opportunity. If you want to switch gears at any point in the podcast, para servirle. But yeah, that was part of the accident of fate, right? These various countries. By the time I was 3, 4, I'd be using 3 languages over the course of the same day. It was Italian, was what I was raised at home. And
that was your first language, Italian?
First, yes, certainly in terms of chronology of learning them, and then Spanish after that. When we lived in Mexico, we picked that up very fast, and then kicking and screaming. The time I was 6, 7, my mom thought that it would be a good idea if my formal education was in English, and I had a very, very hard time for those couple of years.
So did you know like the phonetics of how to read the phonetics in Italian?
Yes, in addition to my parents, my formal Italian schooling consisted in a lot of comic books. So yes, I was reading the language fairly early on.
Okay. It's always crazy to me to think that some of the most diverse people, right, at a young age, when they live in different places, always come from military backgrounds. But those who don't, like your dad wasn't military, right?
No,
and
no,
he was
far from it. Yeah.
and you find military people often get to see more of the world than anything. But then you kind of come full circle now, working at the port servicing some of our as a landlord to the tenants who are military people.
Right. Right. Well, it was a very, in retrospect, it was, we kind of took it for granted, but my social circles was, kids that were in very similar circumstances. And so, particularly growing up in Mexico and then Algeria and Egypt, which where we spent about 4 or 5 years total.
I bet there was good history there, huh?
It was, yes, yeah. Well, talk about places that were steeped in their past. But most of my friends came from different parts of the world, but there was just that commonality where we either all spoke English or, interestingly, in Mexico, Spanish. Even when I was going to an English language school, a British, a school that was founded by the British, we all tended to speak to each other in Spanish, even though none of us had been, or very few of us, were initially raised speaking Spanish. So my best buddy was from Yugoslavia, of all places, but Spanish was the.
Do you still keep in touch with any of them? It's a long time ago, right?
Yeah. Well, so through the miracle of social media, we've been able to rekindle, a couple of friendships, particularly from my time in North Africa, which was I was a little bit older, including through my young teen years. And then interestingly, there's reunions that they occasionally have that I've been consistently missing. But and it's not so much class reunions, but it's just folks who went to the same school. Some of them might be relatively recent graduates. Others went to these schools in the 1950s or 1960s. But there's just that shared experience, and so they'll have somewhat informal get-togethers. So a lot of them happening in Texas, actually, because I was
going to say,
because there was a lot of oil company employees, particularly in.
So they grew up to be oil folks, oil men.
The ones that I've been in touch with, less probably a lot of the same shared experience. I have two parents who are both engineers, which is why I ended up going into comparative literature for my education. And so, I've got a friend who's teaches library science up in Wisconsin. One of them is in banking in London. So,
okay, I was going to ask, what do you think it was about your upbringing that made you really grab onto the arts and culture? And
no small amount of credit is my mother, and just the curiosity that she naturally has. And certainly you have to consider that my parents, when they left, and this is something that I hadn't really given a lot of thought to until relatively recently, especially the older I get, they left Italy when she was 20, my dad was 21, and they decided to cross an ocean to go to Brazil. So they were certainly, very open to new experiences. And then my mother in particular, I remember, Mexico being a very big influence. So going with her to, various museums, various, tianguis or arts and crafts, especially traditional Mexican folk art spaces. And so that was my earliest memory, earliest exposure to at least being present or being a witness to those traditions. And it wasn't until many, many years later that I started to have this crazy notion that, well, I might try a hand at some of that as well.
Did your mom ever paint or write?
She did do a few paintings that I remember, and then she, I believe, is still working on the same needlepoint that she started in 1975. No, it's really been more of her, taking me on. Well, both my parents. I mean, my father was also very much there, but just taking us on these various excursions and experiences. Acquiring some objects along the way. I remember when we first moved to Dallas, particularly, back then Plano, which was a farming community in transition in the 1980s. We had a pretty eclectic house of stuff that wasn't as common back then as you might see it today. So that certainly was a formative experience.
Are you the only child, or do you have siblings?
No, I have a younger sister.
Younger sister.
My little sister. She's the so I was the one born in Brazil, and she's our honorary Chilanga.
She was born in Chile?
No, she was born in Mexico City.
Mexico City. Oh, yeah. Chilanga.
Yeah, that kind of Chilanga. That's right. And so she's doing very well. She's very successful. She's an event planner out in California. Runs her own business.
Oh wow. Okay. Does she have a touch for the arts side too, or?
Well, certainly in what I've observed and what experience I have in event planning, but she certainly has much more of an artistic flair as a both visualizing and executing some fairly extravagant stuff. She's out in Santa Barbara, so she hangs out with a lot of the jet set, the Hollywood crowd.
Okay.
So there's expectations, and apparently there's budget for her to do some pretty cool and creative things. So yeah, she has I think translated some of our shared experiences into a particular path that works really well for her. And she's the extrovert of the two. So
is she?
That's essential. Yes.
Well, you're really good at one-on-one.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It's taken a lot of practice to get to this point, but
I'm sure. Well, I'm sure with most of your stint in at the state level as the deputy communications, you had a lot of maybe 20-on-1 from whenever you did a news press or maybe outnumbered.
Well, those experiences happened every once in a while, but
it wasn't an everyday thing.
Well, it's more you're the guy behind the guy, or the guy behind the gal, and so you provide a framework of support for them to be the ones who are the
deliverers.
The
anchor,
the spokespeople. And I will say that it was, to the degree that I had that role, it was whenever we'd have to pivot and engage with Spanish-speaking communities, and so in those cases, I was
that was your forte.
Up front, fuerte, but
fuerte. Nice. So your sister went off to California. You decided to go to UT and then hang out in Austin. But why San Antonio? What you said the port brought you here, but Kelly had been closed since like 95, or it was
Right.
cycling down.
Well, it's actually kind of interesting because I when I started my career with the state, it was in 1993, and so I distinctly remember the rumblings, especially back then. Believe it or not, we read newspapers in print, and part of my job early on was to compile a news analysis, which consisted of me going to the vending machines downstairs, because back then, believe it or not only did we have newspapers in print, but every major newspaper in Texas you could buy, the morning of publication or shortly thereafter in Austin. And so that included the San Antonio Express News, the San Antonio Light, and Houston, Dallas, the Valley, etc. And so I remember those initial articles starting in, I want to say, 1994 or so, about the prospect of Kelly being on a BRAC list, and then of course it came to pass. And so I was a distant observer, but I was certainly aware of what was going on, and aware of what it meant for this community. And then going back even earlier than that, when I first started at the University of Texas, friends and I would come down, fairly regularly. We had friends who, high school classmates who had gone on to Trinity in particular. So that was some of my early exposures to the city, and I liked it a lot. There was just a comfort level. It wasn't a parallel to the experience that I had growing up in Mexico, which I remember to this day very, very vividly. But there's of course the commonality with the food, with the culture, with being able to occasionally, when I came, use my Spanish. But over the course, so there was that to begin with, and something that was very distinctive, certainly from the Dallas, where I had spent my high school years, and even Austin, quirky though it was back then. San Antonio has always had something that was very distinctive and alluring. And then, with the passing of time, and I say this with a lot of love, I had, great opportunities in Austin, but San Antonio always struck me as a place that was, on the one hand, easier in terms of quality of life, especially, by that point in time, I had become a father, a single father, and it just had the sense of history that far exceeds a lot of other places in Texas, or the United States,
right.
For that matter. And then I had been in public policy and politics adjacent for a number of years, and it was fun while it lasted, but I just felt I wanted to try something different. And so actually prior, there was a 2-year period. What brought me here was a career opportunity with the Nature Conservancy, so a very large environmental nonprofit. So a completely different world from what I had been doing 15 years prior to that in public service. And then this other opportunity came up with this interesting organization that was still very young, coming together, that straddled the worlds of the private sector, of education, and of public service, I thought, in a very interesting way. So I thought I'd give it a shot, and they've they gave me an opportunity that is now 15 going on 16 years in the making.
Wow. So going on 16 years at this role, and how long were you at the state for?
15 years,
15.
Just short of 15 years.
Okay.
So this is
14
my,
and 16. So
Yep.
you'll be 30 years into it, huh? 30-year reunion to UT?
something
Close,
like that.
close.
Yeah.
What was one thing you learned from the leaders you worked under at the state? Was it different leaders, or was all the same?
No, I worked under 3 different administrations.
Okay.
Within the Attorney General's office.
So was Ann Richards?
Well, Ann Richards was the governor.
Right.
When I embarked on my career there, Ann Richards was governor.
Okay.
The Attorney General was Dan Morales from San Antonio, and then subsequent to him, it was John Cornyn, who of course went on to
become senator.
Is now our U.S. senator, and then Greg Abbott, our current governor, was the last Attorney General under whom I served. And in answer to your question, well, there were, certainly they were the leaders of the organization. There were a lot of other people in leadership positions that might have, don't make the news every single day.
Right.
But they also were, very important in forming. To your question, what lessons did I learn? And well, a big one is that. When you are in these positions to effect, change that can, positively impact a lot of people, a lot of thought has to. You have to, always be aware of the consequences of your actions, but also be on the lookout for the opportunities to effect positive change and to do good. And that was something that I was given that opportunity within certain lanes of what the agency was able to do. And it's not one that people are particularly familiar with, other than you think Attorney General and top law enforcement officer of the state, which is true, but along with it comes crime victims support, child support, consumer protection, which was an area that was very near and dear to me, particularly because I, along with really a couple of other colleagues, were entrusted by the attorneys general at the time to see where we could make inroads, particularly with communities that had been unduly impacted through economic fraud, and who underreported what was happening to them. So that included, financial crimes, shady mortgage practices, things that aren't just, someone, taking you for $50 or $100. These are things that, we saw up close and personal, how it upended lives, how it upended families, and we're able to do something about it. On the one hand, justice where it could be meted, but also from the public relations communication side, creating programs to empower and inform consumers. So a lot of my time was spent actually coming down to San Antonio, traveling South Texas, going with colleagues to every VFW hall, Chamber of Commerce. Had a great rapport with a lot of hairdressers because we learned early on, especially for underreported financial crimes or activities, that those were very good centers of information, because the entire community goes to them sooner or later, and they sit around for an hour or two and chit chat. So that was part of the experience that that I really, really enjoyed.
That's awesome. That's awesome. When you were leaving Austin, you mentioned how from what I took and what you said, it sounded like San Antonio felt like home, or a place to raise your family and raise your son. And did you ever give any thought to going to Dallas, back home with your folks, or
no?
Why not?
No, it probably had more to do with just
Opportunity?
being a kid. Well, you also look, my parents decided to put the Atlantic Ocean initially between them and their parents. I'm
what's 5 hours?
Yes, 7.5, depending on what's happening on the Austin side of things. So there was that, right? Just like young people all over creation at some point.
Sure.
You want to put a little bit of distance and sprout your wings. So I'm relative to my sister, if she's watching, who's out in California, I'm the homebody here. So
I guess you're right about that, huh? She's got states between you.
Yeah,
it's the same state.
That's right. California is very far away.
Yeah, that's awesome. Are you close? Do you favor towards your mom or your dad?
Oh, I think I think that if they were here, or if you got to meet them, and the general reaction when friends meet them for the first time, they can pick out the different component parts that came together to produce this.
It's a little bit of both.
Yeah, both aesthetically and then on the temperamental side. So I did inherit some of the qualities, hopefully the good ones, from the engineering side as well.
So I was going to ask, your dad is electrical engineer, electronic.
Yeah, electronic engineers. Yeah, both of them.
So he went to school in Brazil
No,
to go out,
they both went to school in Italy.
In Italy,
Yeah,
okay.
things are a little bit different there. So it was essentially a technical degree that they each got. That's how they met. They met
That's cool.
in college, and then like I said, I think I'm doing the math right. I think she was 20, he was 21, and the legend goes, and I only learned this relatively recently, that like so many Italians, and keep in mind also that they grew up, both my parents are of the baby boom generation. Yeah. So they grew up in war-torn Italy in the 1950s, in the 1960s, particularly in the 50s. I recall my mom telling me about, just playing around, bombed out buildings.
Jeez.
You had, folks who were coming home, from, or who had, been part of the war. Lots of families who's, had lost loved ones. And so the landscape at that time, socioeconomically, was very, very different from what it would be, following European, the European Union and all the opportunities that were hence created. So it was not unusual for people of their generation to look to leave and find opportunity elsewhere. And for most of them, it was going to Northern Europe or Germany. And so my father was scheduled to do an interview. I believe he was going to go to Munich, if I'm not mistaken, for an interview. And in the train station, again, in the town where they grew up, he ran into a college buddy of his who said, well, there's this Swedish company actually here in town, and they're doing they're giving people like on the spot job offers. Why don't you go and check it out? Well, he did, and they gave him an offer and gave him a ticket. I believe it was a ship ticket at that time to go to Brazil. And that's
wow.
And that's
made him an offer he couldn't refuse, huh?
Right. And so, unlike a lot of their contemporaries who did go off to other parts of Europe, but it was always with the idea of coming back. But that turned out not to be the case for this side of the Felici Barboni clan. That's my mom's maiden.
Your mom's maiden.
Yeah.
Got to get that in there. Wow. So, man, that's awesome. Just how your folks leave their home, never went back.
Right.
I guess you've had a home all over the place. But did you mention that Mexico was the longest stint you had stayed, or am I?
Well, at this point, Texas.
Well, yeah, for sure.
Far
But
away Texas.
in your
But yes, and up until
adolescent.
Yeah, up until the time that I was 14, Mexico loomed
Okay.
the largest.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it would have been Egypt. We did a total of 4 years. And then, like I said,
Well, in Plano, you were only there about 4 years too.
Yeah,
huh?
Plano,
So-
as it happens, I showed up right at the beginning of, it was pretty clean in that way. I showed up at the beginning of high school.
And then you go to Austin?
Rolled in September, October of my ninth grade year, and then graduated, went off to Austin.
And you're there for another 4 years. Actually longer because...
No, 3 years.
3 years.
3 years.
You did 3 years.
I discovered...
Oh, you were a smart person.
No, well, smart because I discovered all of the classes that I could scam my way and test out. And one of the greatest days of my life, since I know it's one of the questions that you like to ask, is when my counselor informed me that I did not have to take another math class.
That was it.
And so that was just wonderful. So I took the fast track through my undergrad.
Okay.
And then took a little detour. I had applied. I had gotten actually a fellowship towards a PhD in comparative literature, but life had other plans for me. So
literature. That you never had an itch to work for Express News or The Light?
As a journalist, no. Actually, my initial plan, I saw two possibilities, and one of them was to go into teaching at the collegiate level. But I felt a very strong pull for the performing arts as well. I was very involved in my high school years in theater productions and competitive acting competitions, and so I thought that might be something that I'd want to try
You were
out.
part of the production or part of cast?
Part of cast.
Really?
Yeah.
What plays did you do?
Several. I played Allie Hackham in a blockbuster production. I'm surprised you haven't heard of the Vines High School repertoire of Oklahoma. Then innumerable Neil Simon plays. Willie Loman in The Death of a Salesman, and then it was more of a competitive situation where you just do a couple of scenes. But I played Salieri in with my good buddy Mark Wilson as Mozart in Amadeus.
Did you sing?
No.
No?
No. That's why I got the part of Ali Hakim. He's one of the principals who doesn't sing in Oklahoma.
I thought you were going to say he was mute.
No, he wasn't mute. He was. Eddie Albert did a fantastic job. If you want to check out the Hollywood production. Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
And you never thought about picking it back up after?
No, to the degree that I've had notions of that, would be more on the production end, and particularly, and hopefully I still have some gas in the tank. But I've had a couple of notions for documentaries that maybe someday I'll actually start
put something together,
advancing. Yeah, so it's in development right now, Jesus.
All right,
as they say.
That's an Easter egg, huh?
Yeah.
So when you're ready to hear it first, come to the Jesus Rendon podcast to release it.
Right. Will do.
Well, I don't know. You also have a 15-year kind of timeline when there's a little bit of change. So you think you might jump ship and go 100% into that?
Well, right now, I kind of hesitate. I'm feeling a little bit queasy because I had to turn off my phone for the podcast. But I don't want to leave because I might just miss something at the clip that we're
much going on.
And it's been incredibly rewarding. So going back to the earlier question of my time spent in public policy, it translates for me, very much so in my current line of work, which is, what can you do as an individual, as a team, as a collective to affect true positive change, lasting positive change. And I could have not in a million years, and I mean this with all candor and all honesty, this is a tremendous opportunity. And to be honest, I almost lucked into it. But thanks to the colleagues I have, thanks to the support of people like yourself and the surrounding community who have who are kindred spirits and contributors in this journey as well. It's the next chapter. It'll happen, but it's gonna take some time. Right now there's a lot of big things happening, and I want to stick around and I want to be able to do my part.
Yeah, I will say that this role suits you very well, and you ride the grind very well too, especially in some of those late neighborhood meetings where you don't live in the neighborhood, right? But you stay there to the end like you do, and you've done that for as long as I've known you.
Well, well, thank you. That really means a lot. And it's honestly, that was when I first interviewed. That was one of the top 2 or 3 items that they presented me with and how I would feel about it. And I said, great, because that's what I had been doing in my prior experience with the state of Texas. So again, just going and in that case, you're kind of just parachuted in, places, communities, sometimes very small communities, right, that you don't know well, they don't know you. And so it became, critically important to just frankly be a good listener and just, be honest, be respectful, know that you're not going to have all the answers, but make sure that you follow up. And here it's even better than that, because it's about establishing and growing and having a long-term relationship. So that's really been part of my work that I've truly enjoyed, especially because that is a very important barometer, not just for me, but for our organization writ large of, are we doing our job? Are we having that impact? Are we connecting up with folks?
Right. When I was living in Austin, just before my first daughter was born, I was scratching to try to find a job over here. And you remember, I was driving back and forth every day.
I absolutely remember. You were working for Applied Materials.
Applied Materials. See? And I remember coming to the meetings in the neighborhood, hearing you talk about the opportunities. And at the time, I had a really good education. It's just, it's a little bit of a very niche industry to get into. And I remember going to TJ's at lunchtime just to run into folks who were there. And I remember seeing a few guys from Booze. And then I even remember I read the news enough to know like the companies that had gotten in trouble when Snowden and everything happened, and Booze being one of them. And I remember thinking, oh, maybe they'll take me because they're having a hard time coming in or something. And
right.
And I remember sitting at a table, they all had Booze Allen tags. So I went to go talk to them and asked them where they went to school. And they were. I remember he told me he was a civil engineer, and I'm like, and he was doing software stuff. Just the irony that I was like, okay, well, that's what I went to school for. I should be able to get in there. I got business cards, and I will say, you coming out and connecting me, and others, how I ended up getting my job. Well, you doing those things and that outreach meant the world, because at least it was, even if it wasn't the most effective, it was something that I was doing a little bit towards it. And, you need certain credentials before you get into something like that. And so to find somebody who would sponsor those was very, very challenging, but eventually came around. And I will say that my goal now, especially for the company we work with CNF Technologies, a family-started business, is really, and not I say my goal now. My goal has always been to bring everybody up with me as the water starts floating, and a lot of times that's hard, right? Because I don't know how long the water's going to be going up for, and it's like, or you grab onto something before it goes back down, but I've always had faith, and I think the presence of having you at neighborhood meetings, at these community events, is very important, more than ever, because Kelly was a base where people couldn't go on to, right? When I was a kid, and the others in the kid, and they remember how prosperous it was for the community members and the families that lived here. So I think that presence, and like I said, you grinding it out, and in some of the harder meetings that aren't the most easy to sit through or comfortable to sit through. I think that goes a long way for the community.
Well, I sincerely appreciate the feedback and the very, very kind words. And I mean, all I can say is, again, it's important.
Mm-hmm.
I feel you, and you can articulate it far better than I. But you and I very quickly became, kindred spirits, because of different paths to get to this point in space and time, but having that understanding that there's opportunity quite literally next door,
right?
And what
Our
you're
backyards,
and what you're up against is history and perception,
right?
In a lot of cases, and that is something that I take very much to heart, and not just myself. My colleagues and I, as an organization, have, I think, a very clear-eyed understanding that sometimes it's a bit more challenging to win the trust and understanding of people who went through that history, because of understandable necessity. Kelly was a place that was closed off to much of the surrounding community, unless you worked there or unless you had a relative who worked there. And now to really drive home the point that it is a place for everybody.
Right.
And much like you were going off to TJ's, and you're very special, and this is because I mean, you've got that the talent and the innate curiosity, and frankly the courage to go out there and start reaching out to strangers and start those conversations. And that is the essence of what our work is ultimately about at the Port. We accomplish a lot of this through the levers that are at our disposal, which is, well, how do you manage a real estate asset,
right?
And start to then create a place that is accessible, that is welcoming, but then how do you bring in the community? How do you bring in partners like yourself and many others, so that they in turn can become that catalyst, very much like you say, that make people realize that there are things within grasp right now that can be life-changing, and can be multi-generational life-changing. So back to your earlier question, do I see myself changing lanes here sometime soon? Not really. There's still a lot that has to be done, and there's a lot that we can look back to with great pride, and a lot that is happening day to day now. But I think there's room ahead for us to do more.
For the listeners listening who are unfamiliar with the port, what is Port San Antonio?
Well, we are this odd entity that was created specifically. There's only a couple of us in the state of Texas. Our friends are at Brooks are the other entity that was created as an independent authority to take ownership of a former federal facility, in our case, the former Kelly Air Force Base, and then charged with redevelopment. And what that effectively means is, how do we continue the history, the momentum of what legacy of what Kelly represented for so many people in this community, which was a front door to economic change and economic opportunity. So what made Kelly very, very different from a lot of the military bases that ended up being closed or realigned around the same time 30 years ago was that Kelly had an almost unique, I'm going to be bold, I'm going to say unique aspect, that it employed a very large local civilian population. And so as a result of that closure and realignment, we were created and we came together with a lot of other partners. There's a tremendous amount of people that deserve credit, particularly during a time of uncertainty and transition, because Kelly's announcement, as I mentioned much earlier, the closure announcement happened in 1995, and then there was this 5-6 year period where we were created as an entity and brought together various stakeholders to then continue the momentum, continue having it serve as one of San Antonio's major centers of employment, and then figure out what would be coming next. Because as a practical matter, we were handed over a base that spans 1,900 acres, which is about 3 times the footprint of the Central Business District in downtown San Antonio. Had at the time thousands of employees who were retained as a result of the transition and the ability to then have the military workloads on aircraft maintenance, repair, and support operations transition to the private sector. So companies like Boeing and Standard Aero that took a chance on this community and have stayed the course and have continued and are now thriving here. Our role was to keep spinning a lot of plates and then figure out also what you do with this very large property, this very large asset that a lot of the facilities were in disrepair or only had a limited amount of time where they could be put to productive use, and then develop new spaces and new opportunities. So we are a standalone public sector entity that nonetheless is joined at the hip with any number of partners, with our community associations, with the neighborhoods, with our educational academic partners, industry, and all with an eye to create life-changing employment opportunities. So to attract, to retain, to grow those employers, whether it's someone like CNF Technologies that was literally a mom and pop shop project at the by Roxanne and Fred Ramirez during the time that Kelly was winding down, to bringing in some big blue chip names that have now grown us to really a very large innovation technology center where we have 80 plus employers today, 18,000 people that are directly employed on the campus today, and much, much, much to look forward to in the not too distant future.
Right. I work at the port, you know that, and every time we talk to co-workers, and they're like, "Hey, you've been out to the port, the Boeing Center now?" And I was like, "Yeah, actually, I was when Port San Antonio was first thinking about doing it. I was a small part of putting in some input on this or that, and I think that's something that I'm proud of every time we get to talk to some of the folks out there.
Don't sell yourself short, Jesus. And I go back to that comment, that notion that being in touch, being really in touch, having relationships with the surrounding neighborhoods, really being as a key driver in how we approach our work. And I'll share the story, and I don't think I'm breaking any confidences because I think he's also shared this story publicly a time or two. But when our current principal, so Jim Pershbach, first took on the role of CEO a few years back, one of the first things we did is we visited with the surrounding neighborhoods. And because we are San Antonians, and one of the many things I love about San Antonio, one of the things that lured me here and has kept me here, is we are just so genuinely polite that sometimes we're polite almost to a fault, except for the time when this lady, during one of the an older lady, during one of the early meetings that Jim had with the surrounding neighborhoods, Jim, of course, laid out a very ambitious, epic vision for the port, which incidentally has come to pass since that time, with more ahead. But back then, the initial feedback, it wasn't during the question and answer to the entire congregation that was before us at that particular point in time. It was in a sidebar with Jim, and she said, well, this is nice, this is fine and good, but you don't really understand this community, because what you're talking about, those aren't opportunities for us. Those are not opportunities for our young people. And that, and I was within earshot, and that has stayed with us for, to this day.
Right.
Because it presented us, part of the challenge that we have to work at on an ongoing basis. And hopefully we've achieved great strides since that time by creating a place such as the Boeing Center, which is all the cool rock shows and ESPN fights and all of the things that that pay for the facility, but importantly, for people to see, recognize, and experience the front door that is the San Antonio Museum of Science and Technology, where we have a showcase at Area 21, the exhibit hall, where young people or not so young people can come and experience the things that are happening, and in many cases that have been happening in their proverbial backyard all along.
Right.
But circumstance, prevented that connection. So our work is changing perceptions wherever there have been roadblocks or barriers in the past, to bring them down, to be accessible, to be transparent, and to help people, and particularly young people. So since we launched the Boeing Center, which was only 3 years ago, last month.
Jeez, feels like just yesterday.
100,000 kids have come through programs with SAMSET. Kids from throughout this community, starting with South Sound and Edgewood and Harlandale and SAISD. And to, as early as we can get them, start having not just these aren't just exhibits, behind glass. You've been there. These are hands-on exhibits, but importantly, they are programs, including those that are funded through our independent nonprofit, the Kelly Heritage Foundation, that make the young people realize that they too have value, that they too can participate in this journey,
Right.
be it in their careers, be it in their subsequent educational paths. And hopefully we have the next Fred and Roxanne Ramirez or Eric Nieves, who, along with other colleagues, launched Plus Run Robotics. We have a tremendous wealth of existing talent, of potential talent in our community here in San Antonio that really provides us with a very important advantage as we look at at industries that compete globally,
Right.
and within a short span of time, if we keep doing all these things and we keep the connectivity with the surrounding community, we hope to start seeing that expansive transformational change for San Antonio. So yeah, it's a bit difficult to not go to work rather eagerly every morning, because that's something that, some days are different than others, but I think to a person, and we're a very small team, by the way, there's only about 106, 107 of us that are actually part of the organization. That
And 6 of those are interns. Every 6? How many interns?
Oh, yeah. So the internship program, it's going to be 10.
10 interns from South San and Edgewood ISD.
Yeah. So that is something that we're, again.
I remember when y'all first brought up the idea, and I was like, let's do it. I mean, connecting, sharing the word. And
that was Jim's notion, and we put it into practice very, very quickly. And we've been doing it since 2019. And again, that one is, well, first of all, it's very important because it's important to the lives of the kids that participate, and we always make an ask of them. These are juniors that are going to be spending 6 weeks with us, starting here very soon, through June and July, and they're going to work within different departments in our organization in Port San Antonio. So I'll have a couple who will be working on the communications and marketing side, in our IT department, in our property management department, finance, governmental affairs, etc. We want them to have that firsthand experience of the career opportunities, but importantly, we also take them on side visits to a lot of the employers on our campus, where we can't always have very large groups visit, but we want to make sure that we are developing a cohort, a community of ambassadors that next year, when they are seniors, they have a clear vision of themselves and the opportunities that they have, but that they also help us spread the word. And it's not just for the next class of interns that we would be having in summer of 2026, but also for them to share the fact that there are some really neat real world experiences that all it takes, well, I say all it takes, but that begins with the current generation of kids just being involved with us in some form or another. So whether it's programming by SAMSAT, programming by our friends from the WEX Foundation, you and I just visited with them last weekend. They had a current 2 cohorts, a total of 60 kids that are part of a free to them enrichment program over the course of 3 years, where, hey, you want to be the next space scientist, you want to develop the technologies that are going to get us, to the moon, to Mars and beyond, start building, massive satellite arrays that are going to get us off of carbon here on Earth, as we harness, solar-based electric power generation out in space. These are all real things, and these are all real opportunities. And San Antonio is already positioned to be leading in all of these sectors. What we want is to make sure that the talent originates from right here in the neighborhoods and right here in these communities.
I will say, with the internship, you said there what it's really building in those interns is a sense of belonging in that environment. Because growing up with the jets flying out of the backyard, it's like, I mean, I saw them, but I didn't really feel like I belonged in that area, right? It's like I had to be in the military, and there's a fence there. But having them in the spaces, even if they're not working directly for those for the tenants, it's a sense of belonging that they too are just right there, and the connections go way farther than that. I know a few of the interns who had interned over the years, and great students at South San, and I know they're going to do great things, but it's just that next stepping stool. It's not even a stool, it's like a stool with a spring under it, it pops them up. And that's, I really do believe that when you put yourself in an environment that's successful, chances are you're going to be successful, right? And you feel like you belong. The same way with Trio Upward Bound. I don't know if you're familiar with that programming, but they would have a summer residency program, and we would go spend the night at college and stay in the dorms every summer. And all of a sudden, I'm not only am I first generation college graduate, but it's I've already been to Our Lady of the Lake, I've been to Palo Alto, I've been to all these schools already. I belong here. Even I go up to UT, and well, maybe not all the way over here, maybe I don't belong all the way over here, but still, it's that sense of belonging that you instill in them because you put them in the spaces.
You're absolutely right. It's the sense of belonging, but I think, in fact, I've seen this firsthand. And so now it's a matter of just keep on doing it, do more of it, start demystifying. And I think Jim, like so many things he says it best, that even rocket science isn't really rocket science. And so we see that, for example, with the kids who are part of the WEX Foundation programs, but you also see it in all of these different walks of life and career opportunities, where it's very, very interesting, and it's a great reminder. I've spoken many times, for example, to Sam Jimenez, the founder of the WEX Foundation. Super intelligent guy, super creative guy. He's one of the few people on this planet who has a degree in space-based architecture. He has, of course, Astroport Technologies, which is a private enterprise which receives quite a bit of research funding via NASA. It is what initially allowed him to then create the WEX Foundation as the parallel nonprofit. And he and I have had many conversations where you kind of realize something that you probably have known all along, but it's good to articulate it, and it's especially good to articulate it to young people, which is that all of this transformational change, the technologies that change the course of humankind, and that many times happen rather quickly. It's not just one visionary that carries it forward. Yes, you have those, personalities, all throughout your history books, but it truly takes all of us to get there. And that is a critically important piece of the story that we need to be reminding ourselves of
course,
and informing the young people. And I think I'm a testament to that myself, because I think I made it clear that I have absolutely no technological proclivities or background. I escaped math in college, and I was very appreciative of that. But yet here I am working for an organization that harnesses, promotes, accelerates some of the world's advanced technologies. So there was a place for somebody like this guy right here. So you're going to need the artists, you're going to need the marketers, you're going to need the accountants, you're going to need the salespeople, the extroverts, right? Who front for a whole bunch of engineers, in the back room that are
Right.
doing some really, really cool, creative, and important stuff. And so that is, like I said, a critical part of the story. And then to have that sense of belonging and ownership of the big picture. And that is something that I feel every day with my colleagues. Again, there's barely over 100 of us, but I think you can pull any one of my colleagues and have a conversation with them about, well, what is Port San Antonio? What are you doing? And they will probably articulate a lot of the same things that I have, not because I'm a masterful communications professional and have briefed up everyone. It's because they have seen it, they have lived it, they see the results of their work. So it doesn't matter if you work in property management, if you're part of our landscaping team, our trades, our finance department. There's that commonality and that real deep sense of mission, and
Right.
we'll talk to anyone at any time.
You brought up bridging, connecting, all those things, and one of the things we really try to do in this podcast is really to bridge the gap in generations. And when I think of the people who originally worked at Kelly, they're a generation or two before me, who worked there in the flourishing times of Kelly. And actually my boss worked at Kelly, and he was a GI there, and I remember that building when this that, and late 70s, early 80s, and just bridging the gap in generations is something we try to do here. And what I see at the port happening, because when you lay it all out, Port San Antonio is a landlord, right, who's trying to do innovative things to bring in more opportunities, grow and flourish with the input and the growth of the community. And subsequently, it's that next generation who's going to fill those jobs that come up, and they've got to find their way into it. So when you talk about the environment that needs to be there, Sam said the things David Monroe has done in his generation, right?
Right.
I don't think I've ever seen you not do a speech where you talk about the great things he's done at the community, and the evolution of their growth with Systemic, and then the Wex Foundation, D. Howard Foundation. I mean, all the building a purpose. I mean, we've established a long years of working together to bring in students through your internship program. The students we help at the Southside Student Empowerment Symposium. It's that full wraparound services, and I think Port San Antonio. When I think of Port San Antonio, it's a little bit more than just the real estate. It's a little bit more than just the landlord, right? It's the full environment.
Yes. Landlord is the beginning,
right,
of a relationship that makes ultimately the mission possible. You have to keep your eyes constantly on the mission. That is how you make the decisions that are going to guide you in the long term.
Okay, you ready for a hard question?
Absolutely.
Why is Port San Antonio better than Brooks?
No, well, it is a hard question, but it is a false choice, sir. What Leo, Connie, their colleagues have done is amazing transformational change.
How are they different?
Well, I would honestly, and I'm not trying to be avoidant and coy, but I would welcome them to explain.
Share theirs.
Yeah, because there's going to be a tremendous amount of parallels, and they live their mission very much the same way that we do, which is at the end of the day, it's about growing community, empowering community, and their approach in some respects is a bit different, because Brooks is able to sell has sold pieces of the property, which is where a lot of that great redevelopment has happened. And I have unfortunately not lived in San Antonio long enough to bear witness as to what that change has been over the course of time. But it is very clear. I mean, I spend an awful lot of time going to that part of town, and that is a testament to the vibrancy that Brooks has brought to the community, in a tremendous sense of optimism. We are different at the port because of first of all geography. So Brooks really has embraced that advantage that you have major thoroughfares that create that physical connectivity.
What is a thoroughfare?
Well, a thoroughfare being a main road. So with them, it's military
drive,
and of course New Braunfels feeds into it. You have I-37 that's very easily accessible. So it has, I mean, within the time that I have been in San Antonio, I have seen the tremendous growth that they have brought to that part of the community. They have also embraced the very rich history, and I mean very rich history of the South Side, right, and integrated that that cultural legacy into. I mean, you can breathe it, when you're there, and unfortunately, we at the port were created in a way. We always say that if you were to build an Air Force base today, you would not design it in any way the way that our layout now exists. And so for us, it has taken, honestly, quite a bit of time to certainly during the time that I've been part of the organization, to look to the example that Brooks has set as far as connecting with the surrounding neighborhoods and being a destination.
Right.
And I think we have, finally started to make progress in that direction. But our geography is, of course, that we're a big inverted triangle, and then 3 major thoroughfares, dead end.
Right.
And so the joke was a few years ago, before all of the, new, very public-facing development happened at the port, is like, if you were there, you either worked there, or you were lost, or you were a spy, right?
Yeah.
And so now with really the Boeing Center being the current manifestation, and this is about to grow significantly. And again, we look to what Brooks has done in terms of amenities to create another destination for our community. So a reason for people who would have otherwise not set foot on that campus to have an opportunity to do so. So if our relationship with you starts, because you bought a ticket to, your favorite heavy metal band or your favorite boxing match, shout out to Blue October. But then along the way, you are able to sync up with what is happening at Area 21 at the museum, or the many activations that we're bringing in, including what we saw this last weekend, the balloon launch by the Wex Foundation. We have a great partner in Tech Block, which is going to be bringing additional activities down to
the Capital Factory.
Down to our campus. I'm sorry?
Capital Factories.
Capital Factory, we're still very much engaged with them, actually, because they have that home office in Austin. They are an integral partner for us to be able to engage audiences in Austin, especially when some of our customers or future customers are looking for potential partners, funding sources, et cetera. that's where those two organizations play a critical role. So going back to the earlier question, there's still a lot of opportunity for us
Right.
to continue raising the bar. And you've read our press, you've read our newsletter. We are laser focused on bringing online several major new projects, but key to them, and this is something that I have been hearing for the last 15 years, and my colleagues who go back, in some cases, back to the transition days or even the Kelly days, we acknowledge that there's been a dearth of amenities in this part of town. So the ones that we would be bringing in would be something that is open to the entire community. And a very important one, yes, to additional restaurants, yes, to additional retail, but a very important one that we are focused on right now is bringing in a child development center, a fairly large child development center that would seat anywhere from 900 to 1,000, maybe even a little bit more pre-kindergarten kids. It provides an important amenity, of course, for the 18,000 people, of whom many are young parents on our campus. But the way that we're going about it is to make sure that there is opportunity for different key populations. So it's not just about a third of the seats would be for the on-campus employees. About a third of the seats would be for military families, many of whom have receive a measure of assistance for their child care. But a third of their seats, a third of the seats, would be for the immediately surrounding communities. And so this, again, is an example of us using the real estate asset,
Right.
bringing in the right partners, and creating an opportunity of connectivity. So it connects us not just even more so with the surrounding neighborhoods, but what is very, very important is that you're bringing together three populations, just like you were going to TJ's and other eateries here in the neighborhood, and getting to hang out and getting to know on a personal level, as parents.
Right. Yeah. The
As
kids, we go to
families.
kids' birthday parties all the time.
Exactly. So then, because these are populations that probably would not have naturally come together.
Right.
Except for maybe in a checkout line at
That's
HEB.
a great idea.
And strike up a conversation if the Spurs are doing particularly well.
Right.
But here you're actually building a community with three different integral parts, and then that opens the door even further of awareness of the opportunities that are real, that exist. And when I say real, we've added over 9,000 jobs on the campus over the last 8-9 years. If you look at the online portal that we have, portsajobs.com, again, portsajobs.com, visit that at any moment. There's going to be a couple hundred openings for all kinds of different positions. So everything from maintenance to administration to some highly technical jobs. But again, back to what I was saying earlier, it takes all of us. So
Right.
you've got public relations, so you've got the accountants. I'd also like to point out that our aerospace customers, that the ones that took a chance on us back in the late 1990s, Boeing and Standard Aero, that are now have Boeing's largest operation for aircraft sustainment in the world, is right here in the Quintana neighborhood's backyard. And then Standard Aero, not a household name, but they've been around even longer than Boeing. One of the premier aircraft engine maintenance operations in the world, has their second largest facility on the port campus.
Wow.
And growing. And they have been laser focused on growing these operations. So there is a new Workforce Solutions Alamo resource center that is on our campus.
It got approved in the vote, right?
No, that's a different issue, and we can touch on that. You're thinking of the Alamo College's
The Alamo
bond.
College's bond.
No, this is Workforce Solutions
Okay.
Alamo. So they serve Bear and surrounding counties, and they provide a whole host of services. So you were talking about wraparound services, so they'll connect you up with childcare resources, with other needs that a family might have, but including training opportunities and including employment opportunities. So Standard Aero, Boeing have availed themselves of the facility that really just launched a few months ago, and they've already had 3 events that I can think of where they were hiring 100 plus people at a time.
Jeez.
Standard Aero, little more than a year ago, launched an in-house training program where you don't have to have a background in aerospace. They will hire you. They will first hire you, and then they will train you. Translation, this is paid training. And over the course of several weeks of in-house training at the port, upon completion of the program, they'll put you to work, obviously, supervised, but on the front lines of some of the most complex technological pieces of hardware that exist on the planet. And fun story is that I've gone to several of the graduations. I want to say all, but I'm going to hedge that a bit and say the overwhelming majority, just in case I might have missed one here or there, are folks who are from San Antonio. Okay, they were not exported from elsewhere.
Contract hoppers
to be part of the training program, and what's very interesting is that just the range of backgrounds, which is from 18 to 60 years of age. You have a lot of people that just wanted to pivot and transition and do something different. So a lot of them, people who were formerly in trades, for example, or who worked as as backyard mechanics. But the common denominator in that field, and something that I've also seen in the cybersecurity realm as well, is that what employers are really looking for, and especially in present day technologies that are constantly evolving and changing, where it's going to be a lifelong learning journey, is aptitude. So I'm paraphrasing a CEO of one of our cybersecurity companies that I spoke with a few years back, and he's absolutely right. He says, who I'm really, really looking for is, of course we need people who have, certain degrees and advanced degrees in some cases. But by and large, what I'm looking for is that kid who took apart her grandfather's pocket watch to just figure out how it worked. And hopefully they put it back together again and it still worked. But so long as they have that innate native curiosity. And that drive, and they want to be problem solvers, that's really what
that's worth something.
It's worth a lot. And I have heard that time and again. And the Standard Aero program, I think, is a bright, shining example. Which incidentally, the other very gratifying thing is when you see, and we've already seen it a few times, you have second generation employees. In other words, we have some young people who are late teens, early 20s, who are now working in the same facility as a parent. So that certainly mirrors what Kelly represented for this community, and it's the present day, and it's taking it into the future.
Right. No, that's awesome. What is the one thing you're most proud of at Port San Antonio? Is it the early childhood thing, that development center, or?
Well, I mean, there's
many
ways in which you can look at it, but it's whenever you meet someone who, especially when it's unexpected, when you're out and about in the community, who understands what you're doing, who has a personal story. I found a job, I found an opportunity. One that we hear a lot of, and we want to hear much more of, is, my kid was kind of lost, didn't know, what they wanted to do, and they set foot, at Area 21, or they got involved in some program. The interns, I think, are a very big example of this, because, and I'm ready for history to repeat itself here in a few days when the new class comes in. A lot of them are not going to have much of an idea of who we are, what we do. They just know that we're paying them pretty well. We're going to be feeding them.
Yeah.
They're going to be working in air conditioning.
Yeah.
But by the time they are done, there's that understanding of not just who we are, what we do, but what their place here, and I say here with a capital H, including San Antonio,
right,
might look like in the not too distant future. And after 15, 16 years, I've seen enough of those kinds of examples. So that's what fills me personally with immense pride, and I suspect I'm probably talking for a lot of my colleagues as well.
Yeah. No, y'all are doing great work. Let's dive into a little bit about detours and details.
Oh gosh. Well,
I feel like I learn something new from Paco every time I talk to him, and I feel like that's also your style. I don't know if you've learned over the years to slowly like reveal little Easter eggs and like to make the whole picture of Paco, but it's like I feel like we're playing hangman or something. Like, I guess something. Oh, there's an arm. Actually, Paco does this and this and that. He's drawn, or I've seen the articles that they've published in Dallas about you when you were in your time, and sharing your art that during a kind of like an art movement that was going on in that era.
Yeah, it wasn't particularly deliberate. So I don't know which particular thread you want to delve into, and let's spare your listeners. Let's make this one quick. Detours and details is translates roughly into a midlife crisis. is what it amounts to. But yeah, it's just been this other parallel life that I've had for some time of being involved in the arts, making making art, and then also I'm sorry, go ahead.
What is Detours and Details? It's a name of your company? Is it a business? Is it a name of your art studio? Is it? And how did you stumble on that name?
Well, I guess I needed to come up with a brand, and it kind of stuck, right? Because it describes a little bit of my own meandering existence on this planet, and then and so that's the detours part.
Okay.
And then the details part is it really just goes back to the origin story, where especially and I don't know if I'm remarkably different, but I do think that those very formative years, bouncing around, being awkward and introverted by nature, I tended to kind of just observe. Observe the people and the places, and the objects that make a place and time. And so I had this not unlike a lot of kids, I collected various weird things over time. So it was everything from your usual coin stamp collecting, but then I remember when we lived in Mexico, and then again, certainly when we were living in Egypt, by no means, to this day, by no means being a scholar of any credible degree in the history of these and other places, but having an appreciation for spaces, and then ultimately for objects that represented what came before, and very often you're left kind of just filling the gaps, with your imagination, with your mind, and so that's something that that if I'm not otherwise actively engaged in real work, then that's where my mind and then ultimately my time, and now with Detours and Details, a bit of my resources have been directed. So it's an art space. I have my own art studio that is getting more and more crowded because I keep bringing, nonsense that I stumble on and collect along the way.
How do you decide if something's worth keeping?
Well, that's a great question. So the degree to which Sheila, my angel of a better half, tolerates it or doesn't. So that's a principal determinant of that. And then I tend to not get attached to very much, believe it or not. So if something moves on, it's because it's great. Now I have the space and the resources, but more importantly, the space to it's an excuse to keep moving along. And honestly, and this sounds like a bit of a cliche or a line, but with advancing age, it gets truer and truer. And I compare notes with people who are of a like mind that are similar artists and gatherers of things, and which is we don't actually own any of this stuff. We are just the temporary rewards of it, and so let's do our best to give it its best possible life. And in a lot of cases, you're actually rescuing something from oblivion, so that's something that is actually especially rewarding. And then you give it context. You try to research history if it's even possible. But then it goes to someone who usually appreciates it as much, if not more. So
yeah, I'll share an example of that. Everything you just said. When I went to go check out Detours and Details, and you gifted my daughter. Well, you gifted it to me, and I thought that would be the best thing to give to my daughter. Actually, a little pig hog,
right.
A little shooting target.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about giving it a home. I've got three daughters who are going to grow up practicing shooting that little target at least for the next couple decades, right? Yeah. I mean, and she's got her own little 22 rifle cricket that she shoots, and any caliber bigger than that would be too much for that little target shot. But it's just, we will be the perfect ward
yeah.
of that object for the next foreseeable decade.
Yeah,
so, I think the perfect placement right there.
And that fills my heart with joy. And and so the universe has a plan, right? And things, I guess things just happen. So
yeah.
So on the one hand, maybe I'm just nothing more than a logistics operation, and then people and it's very, actually it's great when
right.
And thank you for
well, I owe you that, right, for the a little bit of closure and how you, I don't know how long that shooting target sat in your place, but not very long.
Not particularly long. Yeah, people think that I've been hoarding that stuff for a lifetime, and I tell them no. This is
they have short life cycles on your
usually
storefront is top of the line premier real estate.
I can fill space very, very quickly, which is part of the reason that I don't get too
attached,
too sentimental. Now, some things have particular meaning, either sentimental, historical. In this case, it couldn't have gone to a better person, and this stemmed from conversations that I didn't know about the part of your life,
right,
where you own property down south and you come from from a hunting tradition, and so it just made perfect
Right.
natural sense. It was not a difficult decision by any stretch of the imagination.
When I think of detours and details, I think of me going somewhere I didn't really want to go, right? Like I had an intent to get somewhere, and it's like, well, I didn't really want to go. Might as well make the best. And the details part is make the best out of it while I'm on this new journey, and it allows me to put myself in a different perspective of really looking close at things. Because when I'm on my destination and on my journey, I'm looking really closely to get there at 10:30, whatever that is.
Right.
But when the detour throws it into there, it's like all of a sudden that's out of my control. I might as well start paying attention to what's right in front of me, because this is not the road I initially started upon.
You just said it better than I could have articulated it, but that's really it, and that's what it ultimately represents. For me. But I've had this conversation with a lot of people who just kind of meander there, sometimes deliberately, sometimes less so, because I'm next to a barber shop. So sometimes there's a parent or a spouse that needs to kill 30 minutes, and then very often 30 minutes have become 5 hours.
Right. I think I spent all afternoon there with you guys. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the plan, or the lack of it.
Yeah. Well,
to your
because
point,
you open on a whim.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when Saturn is in retrograde, when I'm in a good mood, and then of course there's a day job that's important as well.
Right.
But it is about the journey, and that's But well, I didn't think that this would devolve maybe into a therapy session. But I look back at those early formative years where I kind of had to, in a lot of respects, I was not of the place, I was not of the culture. Candidly, I still feel that. There's a bit of Barry might not be the right word, but I'm not American born, not American raised, and so there's a bit of a filter there, and maybe other predispositions, but I do thoroughly enjoy just kind of meandering around without a plan, without a destination in mind. There has to be a timeline, right? I do have to get back home. I do have to do laundry, pay the bills, show up for work the next day. But it's not just the objects. There's a person attached to where those items came from, and very often we end up bonding over that, and every once in a while they actually become what few very good friends I've had. There's a lot of them have come up that route. So it makes for a very eclectic group of sometimes misfits, but but we know we're not
outsiders.
Alone. Yeah, we know we're not alone.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell me about your art. You're known for your distinct face, the faces you draw in the art.
Yeah. Well, I guess there's a lot of portraiture. I've kind of I've moved around in terms of I've certainly moved around productivity. I used to be a lot more productive, but it started really in my late 20s. So it's not something that I embarked to do during my earlier years, and it was informed by a number of things. I mentioned folk art, and growing up in Mexico, Middle East, my mother's influence along the way, but it was took art history in college, certainly visited a lot of world-class museums over the course of time, but it wasn't until I discovered American folk art, and particularly African American folk art, that it was the first time that I felt genuinely moved
Hmm.
by both the art, and then to the degree that I actually made a conscious effort to study the history and the context. It was initially in that very specific group of artists, and which is, in many cases, it's, bringing together unusual objects. Not in a lot of cases, it's people who, when they started out, didn't even think of it. They didn't think that what they were producing was art.
Art.
Right. And so that specifically informed me in terms of, it doesn't all have to be, canvases and sweeping landscapes, and so it was the approach, it was the techniques, and that gave me the confidence to just, start out very basic, start out small, and maybe I brought in the right elements. I was again, going back to my mom, she's not shy about use of bold colors, bold materials, and so those were, some of my early pieces, which were rendered on plywood, and using largely, my art supplies was the Home Depot Oops paint rack on a Sunday.
On a Sunday,
after
yeah.
that, they had messed up
Discounts.
yeah. So it was $1 a quart, $5 a gallon, and so I started to make series of large paintings, paying homage to a lot of musicians that I liked at the time, and as it happened, I was living in Austin at that time, and living right across the street from the gallery that I had first seen some of the greats of American folk art. And actually, it wasn't me. I didn't have the courage to do it, but a friend of mine just put a few in the back of his trunk and took them over there, and came back 30 minutes later and says, yeah, he's going to give you $20 a piece, and he wants more.
He took your art in the back of his?
Yeah, my friend was the
salesman.
go between.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
and he
that's
kept
cool.
half, which was the beginning
Yeah.
of many lessons in the art world. So
Sure.
I he was a good friend, but I needed better representation.
Yeah.
And so it that's kind of how that happened.
Well, so where was this in Austin?
It was the gallery still exists.
Where's the gallery?
They moved. This was Yard Dog Folk Art, which was initially on South Congress Avenue.
Okay.
And I was living right across the street from it. They've since relocated. I can't remember where
Okay.
exactly in Austin, but Randy, the gallery owner, was the first gallery that carried my works.
How are galleries run? Are they everyone does their own?
From what I've seen on a wing and a prayer, and a spouse with a full-time job with benefits, that's typically how they work. And if Randy were here, I'm sure he'd be not disagreeing with me. Yeah, they're invariably very small operations. So
Okay.
a big gallery might have a handful of full-time employees, but it's usually owner operated.
I see.
And then I was kind of ribbing them about the commission, but to all my gallery owning friends and out there, I respect what they do. It's very, very hard work.
Competitive.
Yes, it is. It is not a glamour business.
Mm-hmm.
People show up at a gallery when they're serving chilled champagne, and and there's a photographer in the background, and everyone is dressed to the nines. But to get to that point, it took a lot of work. So a gallery owner is typically, talk about multiple hats. You have to first of all have the passion,
Mm-hmm.
to get up every single day. And, the adage is, don't do art unless you really, really, really can't do anything else. And I think that the same would apply to a gallery owner. And the artist, his or her job is easy. They have to make art. The gallery owner is going to have an eye, right, to know what's good, what has a potential market, market it, pay the rent.
Yeah.
I'm sure that the list is very, very long and would make for a great 3-series podcast.
Yeah, no kidding. Any plans for you to open up a little gallery?
No.
In the next 30 years?
Never. I know too many gallery owners, so I want my freedom.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Yeah.
Jeez. What has been in your artistic journey? What has been the most life-changing piece you've encountered, or even written or drawn?
Well, one that
Has it been a space?
that
Has it been
that helped inspire me, or
just life-changing? I mean,
Yeah.
and I say because I know there's spaces in art too, right?
Right.
There's
Right.
objects, there's paintings, there's
Right. Well, look, I mean, when it comes to art, I think as in life, since you're asking, a jack of all trades, master of none. So I tend to change things up quite a bit, and a lot of that is, just based on external influences, and wanting to try, new techniques or explore new ideas. And so the list could be very, very long, but there's two that come to mind, two experiences with specific artists. One of them was in France, where now I'm forgetting the museum. I think it was at the Orangerie, but the entire museum was a retrospective on Bernard Buffet, whom you might not recognize the name, but if you look him up and you look at his art, you're going to instantly say, "Oh, that guy," the one who did the macabre, clown paintings. But he did and that's the one that he's best known for, which is unfortunate because it is a little bit jarring to some folks. But it was what the museum did was a lifetime retrospective. And in my mind, I knew who he was. I knew probably a couple of other paintings, which were, he was very successful commercially during his lifetime. He was approximately a contemporary of Picasso, and in my mind, and I think in the public's eye, he was regarded as kind of the more commercial, the more cartoonish, if you will,
mainstream, for the era.
Mainstream's the right. No, not that Picasso wasn't, but Buffet was kind of regarded as lower tier. And I remember, experiencing that retrospective, which must have spent the entire day, more than 12 hours. And it was really the first time that I mean, you can study this, you read about it, but when you're with the art, up close, and something that I personally like to do, which I know makes a lot of museum guards very, very nervous, is really like see how how close I can get to start.
Somebody
looking
stop that
at,
man
at,
right
at brush strokes and techniques and where they might have made a mistake.
Yeah, sure.
So it was a very moving experience, especially when you get towards the later works where he's facing his own mortality, works that I was not familiar with,
Sure.
that are actually a lot more, they're less disciplined in terms of the structure of the paintings, not because he didn't have the capability or talents, but I think it's just where he was in his headspace at that particular time. And then the other similar experience, and that one you don't need to buy a ticket across the Atlantic Ocean. If you go to Houston to the Menil collection, which is a wonderful, wonderful museum, I was unaware. I had gone to the Menil a couple of times. I was unaware up until a few years ago that there's an entire pavilion, so an entire building, specifically for the art of Cy Twombly, who was really one of the American masters of abstract art, not as well recognized perhaps as a Jackson Pollock or other of his contemporaries, which is, if you look at his artwork, and very often it's a punchline, because it's it looks like scribbles. My 3-year-old could have done that. That kind of stuff. But to see it, and again, this is a body of work. I mean, it is a huge building, and it is a body of work that spans a lot of a very long timeline of productivity. To see it in context, it adjusts your thinking, and as you can probably tell, I did not really garner a degree in art, because I'd be speaking in a lot more eloquent terms, but there was just something visceral when particularly when you see some of these works that are massive, absolutely massive in scale. There's a mural on canvas that stretches about 60 feet, 15, 20 feet high. And so, that certainly, certainly resonated. And then there's actually a third experience. And so now, well, we're back to the other side of the Atlantic, and it's not an art space per se, but visiting the catacombs in Paris, which it was during that, I believe it was during the same trip where I saw the Bernard Buffet exhibit. And
what is the catacombs?
And so the catacombs, and it was a rainy Tuesday in November, so I had them all to myself. They're actually off the beaten path, so nowhere close to the Eiffel Tower or the Arc de Triomphe or the Louvre, all that stuff. Yeah. And so you basically go underground, 60 feet down a cold spiral stairwell. And it's where, as Paris grew over the centuries, that is where cemeteries that would have to get relocated or get dug up, that's where they put all of the mortal remains. So it's essentially an underground
cemetery.
It's more than it. Ultimately, it is a cemetery. It's certainly a final resting place. Hopefully, it will be the final resting place, because they had to relocate the original final resting place. But it's an ossuary, so it's a lot of winding tunnels that are underground, where the mortal remains, so ossuary bones of I want to say it's 2 million people.
Wow.
2 million souls who are down there, and you walk alongside this, and people might.
Are they framed, or are they exposed direct?
Look at it online. No, you well.
I feel like I've seen it.
They're as close as
this, huh? Just
as
like that.
Yeah.
From here to here.
Right.
Wow.
Right. And so, and I think I was there by myself, No, which was
in the middle of a rainy, dark November sunny
but it was one
night.
of one of the most peaceful experiences I've had it in my life. And you can, if you want perspective on life, spend time with the dead.
Yeah.
And that one stays with you.
Yeah,
one way or another.
Well, that was certainly a most life-changing moment. I would presume if I went through that as well.
Yeah.
I like how it's not in the Louvre or not in those fancy places. It's down a dark stairway.
It was
Wow.
it was a detour, so to speak. I mean, it's not unheard of, right? It's gotten millions of visitors over the years.
Right.
But I think it's for me, it was an important experience.
If I can share two for me, I don't know
Yeah.
the artists. The first I'll share is in the Louvre, Main Street over here. But Judith and I went, and she really wanted to go check out the Mona Lisa, and I was like, "Yeah." It actually sits right across from the Mona Lisa, and it's the Wedding at Canaan. And man, I just sat there and watched that painting. Just how, first of all, it's huge,
Right.
and to think as you're making that, each stroke, do you really think that each stroke of the paintbrush, does it really matter? I mean, like, you could make 10,000 bad strokes, but it's the fine touches of how it all comes together that really it's just, I'm not an artist, I'm not a painter, right? So I don't know, but I could only imagine, does the artist have each face in mind when he makes that first stroke? Does he have the big picture, like just the whole approach of how, and it was very, very majestic, just being right in front of it. And the irony, because the long lines, like checking out
Right.
8x10 or maybe 5x6, whatever the size is of the Mona Lisa across.
Not much larger than the Guadalupe that you have behind you.
Yeah.
I think that's actually about right. I had that experience as well.
Yeah.
And no, you're 100% right. I mean, the Mona Lisa absolutely, I think, has, and it's not just my opinion. I think people opined some time ago.
I think there's a parody on it. A Saturday Night Live.
Well, but that it does have a lot of merit. But then, in the world in which we live, that's kind of like the bright, shiny object. And well, you took a detour, right? You turned around and you saw, something where, I mean, a lot of those works, and I know the painting that you're talking about, they were done over a lifetime.
Yeah. It's just beautiful. I mean, God, that one was one that really touched me. And the second is actually a space, and I saw it in a video. I took a class in college at UT, and we actually went to go check out the Blanton they have there, and it was cool. And the class I took, I ended up dropping it, but I went to every class, and I did all the homework and everything, and I ended up dropping it because I wasn't going to get it like an A or I was like, if I'm not going to get an A, then I don't want it on my GPA. My GPA wasn't already that good, so, but I took it because I really wanted to learn. And there was an artist who specialized in creating his pieces knowing that they would be destroyed. And the one that comes to mind is he built this little structure when it was on low tide, and it was like rocks that came up and this and that, and he's just sitting there watching it once he's done, and as soon as high tide came in, that piece was gone. And it was you're there and in that space, and he took all morning to do it, right? He took and sweating, bringing rocks from far away and getting it, and just like that, it was gone. Maybe there was some symbolism in our time here on Earth, right, that I think maybe affected me. Maybe it was a little bit of the things I was going through at that time. One of the best advice anybody's ever given me is don't sweat the small things, and it's like, it's all small things, right? And it's like he knew what he was getting himself into. He knew it was going to be gone afterwards, but he enjoyed it while I was there. So those two pieces from an artistic standpoint have really really moved me.
I think he'd love to hear you say that all these years later.
Yeah. What is your purpose in life?
We're getting to the easy questions.
Yes. Now we're starting to.
Yeah. Well, I think ultimately you want to leave a legacy, and as part of that, you want to leave the place a little bit better than it was when you inherited it. And so that is the ultimate purpose. The forms in which that can take are many, and so it's, part of the purpose in life is to remind yourself that there is a purpose to all this.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I have an idea of what I think your purpose is, but I'll save it for after. Just hearing the things over and over, and you do so many different things, but there's a fundamental parallel, I think, in all of them. What is your greatest weakness?
Sweating the small stuff.
Mm.
Yeah. It can be it's
small potatoes.
Yeah, but it's
but it's not small potatoes.
Right. But I'm hardly alone, and
sure.
I'm surrounded with a lot of folks with the same affliction, and it's what makes it a challenge, but it's also what makes you hopefully good at something, right?
Mm-hmm.
That it shows caring.
Yeah.
And so the challenge is finding the right balance.
Do you have a mentor growing up?
Well, again, it comes down to my parents, especially because we were extracted from so many different places, but along the way there were also educators that I remember fondly. Miss Starlight, my third
Miss
grade.
Starlight?
Miss
What a
Starlight.
name!
Yeah, well, and she lived up to that name.
Really?
She was my third grade teacher. We had just moved to. This is when we left Mexico, which was really the only home I had known when I was 9, and we ended up in Algeria. And she was perhaps not so much a mentor. I'm sure I learned things. I think my multiplication tables prowess improved greatly under Miss Starlight. But she, well, in retrospect, I can articulate it, but she read the room right, and she could tell that there was a kid here who had just been extracted from everything that he knew and was put in this strange place. So I just I can remember a few specific things that she did, but mostly what she left me with was a feeling of acceptance and not being alone, and which was exactly what was needed at the moment in time, especially because there was more of that moving around to come around the corner. We didn't know it just yet, but helped build a little bit of resiliency.
Those are beautiful people. Those who can make you feel like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Those who can, especially if they have power, and they do that.
Yeah.
Even if they don't have power.
Yeah.
Maybe especially if they don't have power and they're just right next to you. Yeah. Wow. What's one thing, as you've grown through your experiences, what's one thing you thought throughout all your experiences to be true, and you realized it wasn't exactly what you thought it was now?
That the good guys always win.
You can blame Hollywood for that, right?
Hollywood. I think it started. Well, actually, now that you mention it,
cinema. You can blame cinema.
No. The Greeks actually give you.
Well, the good guy,
gave you little room for hope, right? It's not just Hollywood. I think
Sure.
maybe Hollywood was just a reflection of of just so many other avenues through which you are told that do the right thing all the time and everything's going to be fair.
Yeah.
And well, not always, not
always the
quite,
case.
and just with age you prepare yourself for that.
Yeah. Do you think? So let me dive in a little bit deeper. Do you think? And I'm going to stick with the cinema stuff. Do you think the movies you watched during those formational years of your life always had the good guys win? I feel like there's a big influence on. Yeah, I said Hollywood, but cinema, really, right? Because that's how we hear the stories. That's how we hear things. And yeah, I mean, growing up, I watched Power Rangers, right?
Right.
And it's like they're fighting for the right thing, and you got the bad guy who even visually looks bad, right? So you put these things together, and you think that the good people win. Was there a movie that kind of stuck with you then, or
about the good guys winning?
About the good guys winning.
Oh, well, maybe not so much a movie, but I remember that one of the worst punishments I could have as a kid was not being able to watch The $6 Million Man if I had done something bad. And so, yeah, so I liked that Steve Austin. I thought he was pretty cool. And so, and a few others, but that was the general theme. And then, like I said, I grew up on comic books, so it was all superheroes.
That's where it comes from. That's where it's at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Except for Batman. Batman always, kept you hanging.
Yeah, but Batman is not a real superhero. He's a human.
Well, we'll save that for
another podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. What advice do you wish you were given growing up?
Don't sweat the small stuff as much as you're doing now, son. Would have been, so not still keep your eye on the ball, but not perhaps with the intensity that I've been known for. And then, believe it or not, travel more. I wish I had been able to do more of that.
That's ironic, huh?
Yeah. But there were other parts of the world, still are other parts of the world that I haven't experienced that I'd very much like to. And if I could have done that earlier, I think it would have been good.
Yeah. Are you? Is it because you think you're running out of time, health-wise, or is it?
Well, that's certainly.
That's what you're up against.
Well, yeah, that's part of it. I mean, I'm at the point in my life when
you're still in your power years.
Yeah. I'm not signing off just yet. Knock on wood. And
we got questions for those though. We got
okay.
signing off.
All right. But you start realizing, or I'm at a point where who hasn't thought about, well, yeah, one day I'll write that book, or
catch a tuna.
Run with the bulls, all that good stuff. So it's a little bit cliche, but it's cliche because it's true. And then you get to a point in life where if you actually start making a list, and if you more or less have a good grasp on how long it takes to achieve some of these things, that you're going to have some trade-offs along the way.
Okay. Looking from the outside in, what's one thing you want people to know about you?
Well, I think I'm pretty funny.
You are funny.
Wow. You're in a very rarefied group.
You know who else is funny? Jim is also funny.
Yeah.
And y'all both have very distinct sense of humors.
Yeah. I go back actually to humor in a sense, but this was my good friend, great artist, Luis Lopez. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's here in town. but he, one day out of nowhere, we were just hanging out at his studio, and there was a lull in the conversation, nothing awkward or anything like that, and a complete non sequitur. And he looked at me, and it's like, you know what, Paco, you and Sheila, my partner, is like, yeah, tú y Sheila, ustedes tienen la música por dentro. You guys have like the music on the inside. And I took that as the compliment that it was, which like a lot of folks, you especially introverted, socially awkward folks, you tend to have hopefully you have a rich inner life, and you're okay. You're okay with the.
She was very sweet. She's very nice, very, very articulate too.
Oh, she's my hero. She's the most honest person I have ever met in my life. Well, the list goes on, but it kind of started with that.
Yeah. What's one thing you want your family to know about you? Family, kids, son.
Well, I that I'm a cool, all right guy, which I think is probably probably got mixed reviews. I think as time goes on.
Check Rotten Tomatoes on that one.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is your son like you in your artistic left side or right side brain? Right side, yeah.
He is incredibly smart. He is incredibly outgoing. So that is two strikes in being. Oh, he's also very good looking, by the way. He's about as tall as you are, so I think that so the question being on the artistic side, I think he would like to
dabble in that.
to think so. What's really surprised me, he's 31 now, and ever since he flew the nest, he's actually, and I don't feel that I was a particular influence in this, but he has, embraced, and he's in Dallas, and he's been out of the country once, twice. I believe, but he is just, very curious about other cultures, very curious about other cuisines, very curious about other styles of music.
Does he play?
And if he does, then he's kept that from me. But very very worldly and open-minded, and I feel a pretty remarkable way. And he's still young, and maybe I'll live vicariously through him as he gets to, experience other parts of the world. And
do you have kids?
I'm sorry?
Kids? Does your son have kids?
No.
No kids?
No.
Oh, he still has time to travel then.
Mm-hmm. That is right. Yeah. So, yeah, he's single. He's a plumber, and he's I think enjoying life right now in Dallas, Texas, and goes and visits my parents, his grandparents.
So I was gonna say,
yeah.
They're lucky. Well, what a blessing that they're close.
Yeah.
Especially in these, their seasons of their life at this point in time.
I think they would agree with you. Very much so.
These next questions are a little bit morbid.
Okay.
Whose death affected you greatly?
I've been actually very fortunate in that I haven't had people very close to me pass. But, with that, I look back at my grandparents. I knew three.
Wow.
Three of them. My mom's dad died very young. And particularly, at the time it was sad, of course. I lost them when I was either in my late teens or early 20s. but the don't know if it clearly answers your question, but something that I've especially with advancing time again, that I've come to regret, and regret's probably not the right word because it's by no one's making, but I was not able to have a relationship as an adult with them where we could have connected. I saw them. They were your stereotypical Italian. Yes. So we cooked a lot, ate a lot. They would have been smotheringly doting anyway, because that's what you do in the culture. But even more so because we would only, get to visit them occasionally. Yeah, I would have loved to, having an understanding of what their lives were like. Would have liked to have had that, adult connection, adult relationship with them, which I think is, because of generations that far apart, it's, a bit challenging. But, among them, my grandfather, my father's father, going back to, the earlier question of, purpose of life and leaving the world, a little bit better. And, I think all of them, but he was a, special example in that he had a 7th grade education, grew up in a farm, made the best of opportunity as he could, ended up moving from the farm to a little city, where he ended up meeting my grandmother, worked as a railroad switchman. And then similarly, his wife, my grandmother, worked in the same small town in a tobacco manufacturer, in a state-run tobacco manufacturing factory that I was aware of, when I was a kid, when I knew her, but only recently, upon visiting the community where they're from, did I realize that she was actually a rather famous cigar roller. And that people would specifically want to purchase cigars that, which was very ironic because she was severely asthmatic, never smoked in her life. But, the point being is that, they made their way, that they made their luck from humble, very humble origins. And, the outcome of that was, my father and my aunt, his sister, and they gave him the, and this is a story that I'm sure a lot of people can relate with, but because of that, my father was able to have the opportunities that he embraced, and subsequently, and then the courage that he and my mom had to just say, honey, we're packing our bags,
Let's go.
we're it's a big world out there, that brought me to this particular moment in time. And so being able to reconnect with the people who made that possible, similarly with my mom's mom, who, was a widow in her late 30s, never remarried,
Really?
and had to, make her own way as well. I very much wish I could have a conversation with them.
Yeah. Bridging the gap in generations right there. That's
Right.
what you're talking about. And there's something special to be able to have I got to know my great grandfather, and but I wasn't old enough to have a conversation with him as a man who had already been married and had kids. My grandfather I did, though, before he died. And there's something beautiful about that. And I know we're extremely blessed to have my parents and my mom help with the kids, and because they'll get to know their Lita, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Something beautiful there. If you were to die today, who's the one person you would call?
Well, again, these aren't
These aren't
these
easy.
aren't, yeah, they aren't
Not
easy.
fun.
They aren't fair.
Not fair. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people. Obviously, my son, who is just starting his journey. He might not think that. He thinks he knows a lot. He's certainly come a very long way. But just to make sure that he. Well, and I know this, but just. That he does his part, that he leaves the world a better place than he found it, and he's actually remarkably conscientious about that.
This next part is the timeline segment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's structured to be able to look through your life and see, as you can group it in different areas, adolescent, moving maybe 5 or 10 years, or if you want to go through each year, up to your discretion. But really to share an impactful event, positive or negative, up to your discretion of what you feel comfortable, and those events really ultimately making you who you are. So floor is yours.
Well, I thank you. I don't know how much interest folks are going to have in this, but I think that we covered the basics, which is a lot of it is just shaped by geography, during the early years. So again, a childhood where spent in Mexico, where I was really very integrated with the local customs and culture, to where it was quite an experience being pulled away from that as the only world that I had known up until that point in time. Then the years that were spent in other locations, which were a lot more transitory, if that's the right word, especially living in the Middle East. Unlike Mexico, it was folks who were pretty much on the same boat. So a lot of expats whose parents worked for either multinational or diplomats, that kind of thing. To then by the time I was 14, coming to this country, having that initial high school experience, which was probably very much like anyone's high school experience, and becoming a teen, and you go through your rebellious phase, etc. to then going to college, being in Austin, and then just really starting to have and feel ownership of your destiny, of your life, which for me had the added bonus that because the previous iterations had didn't have a sense of community as I would have liked. That started to turn around, during those years. And then other big milestone, now almost 18 years in the making, is making a home in San Antonio. And both the experiences, and probably would have happened anyway, anywhere, but the reflection that comes with hitting the age that I am now.
Okay. Are you promoting anything?
Oh, I think we've promoted quite
a
bit right now, so I am good.
Okay.
And I really appreciate all your time, Jesus, for everything that you continue to do for your family, for your neighborhood, for the community. And if any of my ramblings have
You were
in
great.
any way touched a nerve, irritated, resonated, I'm more than happy to talk to anybody. And I am what excited me about this opportunity is the one thing that I would like to plug is let me know how I can be helpful. And by that I mean, and this is my stock in trade, which is I know when someone else is much smarter than I am at something, and that's an awful lot of people. And so if you come to me, I will try my best to help to both help, but also help you connect with the folks that can best support you, whatever your specific case might be. It's what I've been doing for a career at this point,
Right.
not just at the port, but what preceded that. It was always about public service, and it's not because it's a field that is sexy or exciting. Sometimes, you do. There's a lot of grunt work that goes into it, but when you're able to actually affect a change, especially when it's someone whom you get to meet personally along the way, it means a lot.
Right. Paco, I think you're a super connector.
No.
The work you've done at the port, the work you've done at the state, and the work I know you still have yet to be done and drawn and painted out with your art studio. You've been creating spaces for people to connect for a long time. Thank you for being in the space with me today, and until next time.
Thank you for the hospitality.
Appreciate it, Paco.
Thanks, my friend.